You don't have your phone here, right? Okay, well, I hope we have sound. Otherwise, somebody will complain. Welcome back to the spiritual world.
Thank you.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Javihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, I think somebody would have commented if there was no sound by now. If I put this like, can you read that? This is big enough? Okay, so I want to see if there are comments coming in or somebody saying there's no sound. Okay, so we'll sing. Today's one of our song days also. So we'll sing this song again. We sang once before. Oi Vaishnava Thakur, and then we'll go into Caitanya-caritamrita. Oi Vaishnava Thakur, Oi Vaishnava Thakur, Doyara Sagara, Edase Karuna Kori. Diyapadakshaya Shurayamaya Tomara Charanadori Chaya Vegadomi Chaya Dosha Shodi Chaya Guna Deho Dase Chaya Saksanga Deho Eamare Bose Che Sangera Ashe Ekaki Amara Naipaya Bala Harinama Sankirtane Chumi Kripa Kori Shwadabindu Diya Deho Krishna Namadhane Krishna se Tomara Krishna Dite Para Tomara Shakati Ache Amito Kangala Krishna Krishna Bole Dai Tava Pache Pache Translation. O Venerable Vaishnava, O Ocean of Mercy, be merciful unto your servant. Give me the shade of your lotus feet and purify me. I hold on to your lotus feet. Teach me to control my 6 passions, rectify my 6 faults, bestow upon me the 6 qualities, and offer unto me the 6 kinds of holy association. I do not find the strength to carry on alone the sankirtan of the holy name of Hari. Please bless me by giving me just 1 drop of faith with which to obtain the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours, and you have the power to give him to me. I am simply running behind you, shouting, Krishna, Krishna. Somebody who has a strong desire to get a real taste for chanting the holy names. If we have a real taste for chanting of the holy names, we can chant Hare Krishna all day, and we won't even fall asleep, because Krishna's name is not different from Krishna. Actually, if I can find it real quick. Very important verse. Anyway, it's in here, but I'll have to find it another time. another time. There's a very nice verse, anyway. It tells all about the nature of the holy name of Krishna. It's in the Caitanya-caritamrita Sindhu. I know it's in here, but I don't want to take class now to find it. But Krishna's name is not different from Krishna. So if we can chant Krishna's name without offense, then we'll actually realize Krishna in his holy name. And as much as we try to chant without offense, then we'll get some glimpse of Krishna. But if we can chant purely without offense, 100% without offense, then we can actually realize Krishna, how Krishna and his name are not different. And at that point, we can chant Hare Krishna constantly. That state of mind is also mentioned in one of the Shikshastika verses that we read in the morning. About how we can chant when who's in the proper state of mind, he can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly.
Lower than the straw.
Or feeling oneself lower than the straw on the street, more humble than a tree, right? More tolerant than a tree, and so on like that. So we can, if we're in the right state of mind, then we can chant Hare Krishna mantra constantly. So it's a question of changing the consciousness. Okay, so we'll go on with reading from the Sri Caitanya-caritamrita. So we're still in chapter 1 of the Adi Lila. Adi Lila means the first part, the beginning part of the Caitanya-caritamrita, and we're in chapter 1 of that. The chapter is called The Spiritual Master. Of course, nothing happens without the spiritual master. Rite ritang yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyat atmano mayang yatabaso yata tamaha. What appears to be truth without me, this is Krishna speaking, of course, what appears to be truth without me is certainly my illusory energy, for nothing can exist without me. It is like a reflection of real light in the shadows, for in the light there are neither shadows nor reflections. Purport. In the previous verse, the absolute truth and its nature have been explained. One must also understand the relative truth to actually know the absolute. The relative truth, which is called Maya, or material nature, is explained here. Maya has no independent existence. One who is less intelligent is captivated by the wonderful activities of Maya. But he does not understand that behind these activities is the direction of the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 10, it is said, Maya jakshena prakriti suyate sa charat charam. The material nature is working and producing moving and non-moving beings only by the supervision of Krishna. The real nature of Maya, the illusory energy of the material manifestation, is clearly explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The absolute truth is substance, and the relative truth depends upon its relationship with the absolute for its existence. Maya means energy. Therefore, the relative truth is explained to be the energy of the absolute truth. Since it is difficult to understand the distinction between the absolute and relative truths, an analogy can be given for clarification. The absolute truth can be compared to the sun, which is appreciated in terms of two relative truths, reflection and darkness. Darkness is the absence of sunshine, and a reflection is the projection of some light into darkness. Neither darkness nor reflection has an independent existence. Darkness comes when the sunlight is blocked. For example, if one stands facing the sun, his back will be in darkness. Since darkness stands in the absence of the sun, it is therefore relative to the sun. The spiritual world is compared to real sunshine, and the material world is compared to the dark regions where the sun is not visible. Like that. Where the material manifestation appears very wonderful, this is due to the perverted reflection of the supreme sunshine, the absolute truth, as confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra. Whatever one can see here has its substance in the absolute. As darkness is situated far from the sun, so the material world is also far away from the spiritual world. The Vedic literature directs us not to be captivated by the dark regions, tama, but to try to reach the shining regions of the absolute, yogidham. The spiritual world is brightly illuminated, but the material world is wrapped in darkness. In the material world, sunshine, moonshine, or different kinds of artificial lights are required to dispel darkness, especially at night, for by nature the material world is dark. Therefore, the Supreme Lord has arranged for sunshine and moonshine, but in his abode, as described in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 6, there is no necessity for lighting by the sunshine, moonshine, or electricity, because everything is self-effulgent as the spiritual world. That which is relative, temporary, and far away from the absolute truth is called Maya, or ignorance. This illusion is exhibited in two ways, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita. The inferior illusion is inert matter, and the superior illusion is a living entity. The living entities are called illusory in this context because they are implicated in the illusory structures and activities of the material world. Actually, the living entities are not illusory, for they are parts of the superior energy of the Supreme Lord and do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be. And they do not have to be covered by Maya if they do not want to be so. The actions of the living entities in the spiritual kingdom are not illusory. They are actual eternal activities of the Supreme Lord. You understand? Yeah, good. So, the spiritual world is there's no Maya in the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is always bright and effulgent because the spiritual world, because Krishna's bodily effulgence, his own bodily effulgence, goes everywhere. So the whole spiritual world is illuminated. It's completely illuminated. But and Srila Prabhupada says there's no, actually it's a Brahma Samhita verse, refers to how in the spiritual world there is no need for the sun, the moon, or electricity. There's no need because electricity is largely for used for providing light. But there's no need for these things in the spiritual world because it's already self-effulgent. But the material world, by nature, is dark. Of course, the sun provides light. That's and the person who takes care of the sun, he's actually an incarnation or an empowered incarnation of the Lord. So he's so without the sun, nothing else in the world, there would be no life here. It would not be possible to live here. But the material world by nature is a dark place. And and another thing is that just like we have some tendency to love or to want to love, even though it's a contaminated relationship in the material world, but with this tendency that we have it because of the real love that's in the spiritual world. This is so the real life, everything is right and pure is in the spiritual world. And if there's something extraordinary in this material world, it's because it's a reflection of something in the spiritual world. There's perfect relationships in the spiritual world. Krishna has his loving relationships of a conjugal type with the gopis. He has his perfect parental or parent and son relationship with Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, and actually all the cowherd boys, cowherd men and cowherd women, they all see Krishna, just even though they may have their own children, but they all see Krishna also like in that relationship, a parental relationship. So in the spiritual world, you can have that kind of a parental type relationship with Krishna, but there it is, it's perfect. And this in the material world, someone may have their child, but the child sometimes it's not. Sometimes a real loving relationship is not there. It's lost. Sometimes the child grows up, he does something against the parents. Right? It happens like that. Sometimes the child dies. It gets some accident or somebody gets killed or something. But in the spiritual world, everyone who sees Krishna like their son, Krishna never dies. Krishna never disappoints the parents either. Krishna's always always wonderful. So and same thing with Krishna and his friendly relationship. Krishna and his friendly relationship with I think like they say the cowherd boys. That also is perfect. We may have friends in the material society, material world, but sometimes the friendships go sour. Things happen, and sometimes the friends become enemies after a while. It can happen like that. But friendship and the friendly relationships between Krishna and his friends there, and between Krishna's friends and each other, it's perfect in the spiritual world. So the perfect relationships are there in the spiritual world. Perfect everything is in the spiritual world. There's no need. We suffer here because of our material consciousness. But in the spiritual world, where everyone is pure, everything is perfect, because there's no reason to suffer there. We suffer here so that we'll change our consciousness, and we'll eventually want to get out of this material entanglement and go to Krishna. But in the spiritual world, everyone is in love with Krishna, and with some relationship, and so there's no need. Krishna does not. There's nothing wrong or unhappy or imperfect in the spiritual world. Even you can even hear what to speak of relationships. Just even here, we go down the street. What are the streets? They're blacktop, and they're probably not very clean. People throw garbage on the streets. These kind of things. All this goes on, but in the spiritual world, the streets are beautiful. Sometimes they're made of gold. Sometimes they're jewels. The houses are extraordinary places. When Krishna was in Dwarka, and there's also Dwarka in the spiritual world, wasn't just the king who had big palaces of for himself, and of course in Dwarka Krishna had 16,108 queens, and he had a separate palace for each one, and he was there with them. Krishna expanded himself, so he was in the spiritual world, and he was there separately with each one, engaged in different activities with each one, like that. So in the spiritual world, or when spiritual energy comes here, because when Krishna comes here to perform his pastimes, everything is extraordinary. Everything's extraordinary. So even materially speaking, as far as opulences and like that, if we just become Krishna conscious, then in the spiritual world, everything will be there. We don't have to worry about it here. We don't have to worry about it. Everything will be there, because there's no reason for suffering, and there is no suffering in the spiritual world. And this is what Krishna is inviting us to. This is what Srila Prabhupada is inviting us, and giving us the means to go to him in the spiritual world. Anyway, let's go on to the next verse. Yata mahanta bhutani bhuteshnu chava veshanu pratistanya pravishtani tatateshu nateshvaham. As the material elements enter the bodies of all living entities and yet remain outside them all, I exist within all material creations and yet am not within them. Purport. The gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, combine with the subtle material elements, which are, what are the subtle material elements? No, that's counted as the gross.
Ego, mind.
Yeah. Intelligence. Mind, intelligence. The gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, combined with the subtle material elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego, to construct the bodies of this material world. And yet they are beyond these bodies as well. Any material construction is nothing but an amalgamation or combination of material elements in varied proportions. These elements exist both within and beyond the body. For example, although the sky exists in space, it also enters within the body. Similarly, the Supreme Lord, who is the cause of the material energy, lives within the material world as well as beyond it. Without his presence within this material world, the cosmic body could not develop. If Krishna wasn't here, then the material world would not, nothing would function in the material world. So, similarly, the Supreme Lord, who is the cause of material energy, lives within this material world as well as beyond it. Without his presence within the material world, the cosmic body could not develop. Develop. Just as without the presence of the spirit within the physical body, the body could not develop. The entire material manifestation develops and exists because the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters it as the Paramatma, or the Supersoul. The personality of Godhead, in his all-pervading feature of Paramatma, enters every entity from the biggest to the most minute. His existence can be realized by one who has the single qualification of submissiveness, and who thereby becomes a surrendered soul. The development of submissiveness is the cause of proportionate spiritual realization by which one can ultimately meet the Supreme Lord in person, as a man meets another man face to face. Because of his development of transcendental attachment for the Supreme Lord, a surrendered soul feels the presence of his beloved everywhere, and all his senses are engaged in the loving service of the Lord. His eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful couple, Sri Radha and Krishna, sitting on a decorated throne beneath a desire tree in the transcendental land of Vrindavan. His nose is engaged in smelling the spiritual aroma of the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, his ears are engaged in hearing messages from Vaikuntha, like Srimad Bhagavatam. And his hands embrace the lotus feet of the Lord and his associates. Thus the Lord is manifested to a pure devotee from within and without. This is one of the mysteries of the devotional relationship in which a devotee and the Lord are bound by a tie of spontaneous love. To achieve this love should be the goal of life for every living being. So Srila Prabhupada very much emphasizes here the mood of submissiveness. Just like we hear the Srimad Bhagavatam class or Caitanya-caritamrita Class. So if we are in a submissive mood that I'm hearing and we're saying, yes, I accept whatever it is I'm hearing here, whatever the Caitanya-caritamrita says, whatever the Srimad Bhagavatam says, I accept that. I'm accepting. If we can be in that mood, or if we can be in the mood to follow the instructions of the spiritual master, then we will make very quick spiritual advancement. If we are, say we're reading the Bhagavad Gita verse the other day, yesterday I think, Tadvidi Panipatrina. One should try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service to him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So that's our position. So we have to, if we want to make advancement in spiritual life, we have to accept Guru, and we have to, and Srila Prabhupada says we don't accept Guru simply as what do you say? One should not accept Guru as a fashion. Oh, I got this Guru, and he's a really great guy. You know, he got his long beard down to the floor, and he tells funny stories, and he says little witty things, and he's my Guru. I really like him. We should, you know. Oh, well, I have a Guru who has these other qualities, but that's missing the point. That's missing the point. We have to actually accept Guru. First of all, the Guru has to be Acharya. Acharya has what qualities? What are the qualifications?
He follows the disciplic succession.
Yes.
He's teaching, preaching, and he leads by the example.
Yes, he's gained knowledge through the disciplic succession. He's preaching that knowledge, and he was preaching by example too, showing by example how to follow the philosophy, the teaching. What he's teaching, he's doing it himself, like that. So we find such a Guru, then we can render service. We can follow and inquire submissively. Sometimes inquiring submissively doesn't necessarily mean that you're asking questions. You're actually inquiring, but you have to have a submissive attitude, for sure. Maybe someone's shy and they just don't speak. They don't ask questions. But if their mood is, I want to hear, and I want to accept. I accept my Guru, and what he says, I accept that as truth, and I'm eager to hear that. I'm eager to learn from that. That mood has to be there, and if you can ask questions too, relevant questions, then of course you'll get relevant answers that also help you in spiritual life. But that's a submissive attitude is absolutely required for one who wants to advance in spiritual life. Tashishi Gornatai, Shishivada Brajabihari, Raghunath Balaram, Lady Subhadra Ki. So going on to the next verse. Etavad eva jigyasyan tatva jigyasunat manaha anvaya vyatiri kavyam yat shat sarvatra sarvada. A person interested in transcendental knowledge must therefore always directly and indirectly inquire about it to know the all-pervading truth. Directly and indirectly. So maybe you do have to speak, ask questions. Let's see what the purport says. Purport. Those who are serious about the knowledge of the transcendental world, which is far beyond the material cosmic creation, must approach a bona fide spiritual master to learn the science both directly and indirectly. One must learn both the means to approach the desired destination and hindrances to such progress. The spiritual master knows how to regulate the habits of the neophyte disciple, and therefore a serious student must learn the science in all its aspects from him. There are different grades and standards of prosperity. The standard of comfort and happiness conceived by a common man engaged in material labor is the lowest grade of happiness, for it is in relationship with the body. The highest standard of such bodily comfort is achieved by a fruitive worker who, by pious activities, reaches the plane of heaven or the kingdom of the creative gods with their delegated powers. But the conception of comfortable life in heaven is insignificant in comparison to the happiness enjoyed in the impersonal Brahman. And this Brahmananda, the spiritual bliss derived from the impersonal Brahman, is like the water in the hoof print of a calf compared to the ocean of love of Godhead. When one develops pure love for the Lord, he derives an ocean of transcendental happiness from the association of the personality of Godhead. To qualify oneself to reach this stage of life is the highest perfection. One should try to purchase a ticket to go back home, back to Godhead. The price of such a ticket is one's intense desire for it, which is not easily awakened, even if one continuously performs pious activities for thousands of lives. All mundane relationships are sure to be broken in the course of time, but once one establishes a relationship with the personality of Godhead in a particular rasa, it is never to be broken. I was just saying that a few minutes ago. Even after the annihilation of the material world, one should understand through the transparent medium of the spiritual master that the Supreme Lord exists everywhere in his transcendental spiritual nature, and that the living entity's relationship with the Lord are directly and indirectly existing everywhere in this material world. In the spiritual world, there are 5 kinds of relationships with the Supreme Lord: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The perverted reflections of these rasas are found in the material world. Land, home, furniture, and other inert material objects are related in Shanta, or the neutral and silent sense, whereas servants work in the Dasya relationship. The reciprocation between friends is called Sakya. The affection of a parent for a child is known as Vatsalya. And the affairs of conjugal love constitute Madhurya. These 5 relationships in the material world are distorted reflections of the original pure sentiments. They're distorted reflections of the original pure sentiments, which should be understood and perfected in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. In the material world, the perverted rasas bring frustration. If these rasas are reestablished with Lord Krishna, the result is eternal blissful life. So we all have experienced people that we have had relationships with in all levels: parent, child, friends, conjugal, loving, that kind of relationship, and so on. We have relationships that were there. It seemed like, I think that this is going to be perfect, it's going to last forever, and then in time, it's not there anymore. But in the spiritual world, our relationship with Krishna and with those who are related to Krishna, and those which are not, our relationship with Krishna directly, and our relationship with those who are related to Krishna in the spiritual world, those relationships are never frustrated. Is the word that's used here. So you don't have to, if in the spiritual world you have a relationship as a friend of Krishna, Krishna is your friend, and he's eternally your friend. And eternal is a long time. I mean, we can't even imagine what is eternity. It's hard to relate to it because everything that we have experience of in this world is temporary material things, right? Um, uh, so, but in the spiritual world, nothing has every relationship is eternal. Every relationship is perfect, and it's not like anyone gets tired of or bored in their relationships with Krishna, because every we read, if we read Krishna book, for example, Krishna and his pastimes with his different kind of devotees. There are so many various kinds of relationships, so many kinds of activities that, and every day it changes. Krishna goes out in the fields with his cowherd boyfriends. But it's now they go out there and then it's just we did that yesterday. I'm tired of this kind of activity. No, there's unlimited variety, and Krishna will sometimes create through his spiritual energy. He'll create different situations just to enhance his relationship and for the fun relationships with his friends. So there's no one gets bored in the spiritual world. There's no reason. Everything is perfect there, and we may think, well, if everything was perfect there, and we say we came from there, why did we leave? Why did we leave? One thing is for sure, we didn't leave the spiritual world because of Maya, exactly, because there's no Maya in the spiritual world. Maya can't go there. Her place is here. So, but we do have free will. We have free will. We must have free will. Otherwise, there's no question of love. You can't have you could have a tape recorder or these days a digital tape recorder. Is the word modern Kali Yuga. You get something and program into it, and it constantly says, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you." And many varieties of "I love you." It could say it, it's a recording. There's no free will. It's a machine. So you can have that, but if you keep hearing it, you say, "That's just a recording. That doesn't mean anything to me," right? So so we have to have free will, a little bit of free will. We have to have some choice. If we don't have choice to decide, I want to serve Krishna or I don't want to serve Krishna, then there's no question of a relationship. You can't have a relationship. You can't have a loving relationship with Krishna if there's no free will to decide, to choose, for us to choose whether I want it or not, or how I will serve or engage in that relationship or not. There's no meaning to it without that free will. So we have to have free will. And most living entities never leave the spiritual world. I mean, most living entities are in the spiritual world. There's a lot of living entities in the material world, but most are in the spiritual world and don't leave there ever. But some of us made a mistake. Maybe we got curious about this material world. Maybe thought, who could say what we were thinking? But as soon as you have some idea separate from serving Krishna, then we become well, we're sent to the material world. Okay, you think you can enjoy separate from Krishna? Go to the material world. And Srila Prabhupada says, it's in a purport in Srimad Bhagavatam. He mentions that our first birth in the material world, every living entity, first birth in the material world is as who? Or Brahma. Yes. Or Brahma, our first birth. So so our first birth in the material world is that we're actually in the highest possible position that we can be in here. And we're also very intelligent. Because Lord Brahma, his actual body is made of intelligence, as our body is made of earth and water and so on, and a little fire digestion. So, but basically it's earth and water. So the Lord Brahma's body is basically made of intelligence, which is also a material element. So he obviously is very intelligent, but he's also very powerful. He's been given that power to serve his particular function, and then he has sometimes, actually from what Srila Prabhupada says, most of the time, Lord Brahma messes up sometime during his lifetime, and he ends up having to take, as they say, the bigger it's saying that the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So Lord Brahma, we as Lord Brahma, obviously did this. We're in a big position, and that means you can make big mistakes. You got a lot of power, and you can really go off the deep end if you don't surrender to Krishna fully. And if we do, what do? We go down to way down in the species of life, and then we stay entangled for how long does it take to come up? And then once we get a human body, if we don't take advantage of it, we can lose it. We can go back down again, like that. So this is our position in the material world. But if we take spiritual life seriously, as we should, and we don't right now, at least those who are listening to this class, we're obviously not Lord Brahma. We're here in the material world, but we have the means, the full means to become Krishna conscious. We have the easiest process for becoming Krishna conscious, chanting the holy names of the Lord. We have opportunity of association of devotees. We have knowledge from the acharyas, relatively recently from Srila Prabhupada. We have easy access to Vedic knowledge. I mean, no time in history were books about Krishna consciousness so easily available in so many languages like that. So we have all this, so we need to become Krishna conscious in this lifetime. Don't take a chance. Don't go to heavenly planets. Don't fall in Maya. Just become Krishna conscious. We have over time. Any questions? No? Nobody sent a question online. So we'll end here. Tomorrow we will continue with the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.